Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Healing Arts at Home event. Hope your opening weekend is going well. My name is Chris Saras. I'm with the Center for Prevention and Outreach. If this is the first Healing Arts event you're joining us for, I just want to tell you a little bit about CPO and what we do. An important thing to know about the Center for Prevention and Outreach, our sort of catchphrase or mantra is educate, empower, connect. And we really work to raise awareness with students around a lot of issues that can have some major impacts on their lives, as well as, help them expand the ways that they cope with or respond to those kinds of situations or challenges they might encounter. So one of the things we're going to be doing tonight is a craft. It's a message in a bottle craft, but we're going to be kind of more broadly talking about themes like, positive self-talk and kind of being good to yourself, self-compassion, things like that. And so that's where we're at. If you're here with us, please say something in the chat. I never know if I'm, just kind of on my own talking into the void with these live streams. So if you are here with us tonight, please go ahead and say something. Unfortunately, I don't have any of my student assistants with us, but we're still going to carry on. We're going to have a nice discussion, hopefully. Hello there, Kristen. Great to see you, or at least hear from you again. Wonderful to have you with us. And I hope to have a few other familiar faces. I know a few of you have joined us over the last few nights. So as I mentioned, CPO deals with a couple of major topics that can impact the lives of college students: mental and emotional health, substance use and abuse, physical health, sexual health, interpersonal violence. These are all things that we want to kind of tackle by addressing head on, having conversations, brainstorming strategies for making a difference, whether we're the person in the situation that needs to maybe make some changes in our lives, or we're a peer or a friend, somebody who wants to support that person in getting out of a difficult situation or getting support after having maybe had some not so good experiences at some point. And so underlying a lot of what we do is this idea of building kind of a wide repertoire of healthy, constructive coping. That's really what connects healing arts events like this to the other things that we do at CPO. Healing arts is all about helping people to learn more about things that might affect them and the ways that they can kind of manage those things. So I keep using this idea of coping skills, right? More broadly, we're talking about taking care of ourselves, self-care. If you were with us on Thursday, you might have heard us talking a little bit about the idea of self-compassion. We're going to get into our craft in a minute, but I just want to talk about how some of these things tie together for us. That idea of self-compassion is about essentially being as maybe kind or gentle or as nice to yourself as you would to a friend or somebody else. So that's not the way most of us kind of engage with ourselves. Kristen, not to put you on the spot, but if you're comfortable, would you say that maybe you're a little harder on yourself than you are on other people? And just a Y or an N would be great for me if you're up for adding to the conversation. I know for myself, most of my peers, most of the students I work with, they're generally a little tougher on themselves. I know I tend to kind of be really like, come on, get up, stop complaining, get the show on the road, that kind of attitude towards myself. But if one of my friends or one of my colleagues was having a rough day, I would be much kinder. I'd be like, hey, give yourself a break or take a little time if you need it, that kind of a dialogue. And so that's where we're coming from with the idea of self-compassion. Most of us have not necessarily grown up with that idea that it's, really okay to be super nice to ourselves, right? And Kristen is adding to the conversation. Like, she can definitely relate. And during this first week of school, I'm hearing you've been putting a lot of pressure on yourself. And I'm glad that you can kind of be open about it and talk about it. Because when we don't have an outlet for those pressures we're putting on ourselves, it will create anxiety. That's part of what you're describing here. And worry, anxiety, stress, it all starts to build up when we don't have a way to kind of let out some of that. One way to let some of it out is, having maybe somebody to talk to. Another way is the way you talk to yourself. And so there's sort of an active component to that self-compassion where you're being intentional about how you approach yourself, how you talk to yourself. And that idea of positive self-talk, I think, is probably one of the most valuable coping skills any of us can cultivate. As I started to say, like, most of us didn't necessarily, come up in the world with, a wonderful repertoire of coping skills handed to us on a silver platter. Like, that's something everybody struggles with. But being able to have a few core things that you can go to when you're overwhelmed or when you're stressed out or when you're faced with a really challenging situation can make all the difference, right? And can have a really positive ripple effect in how you're functioning in other areas of your life. So this idea of positive self-talk is really what inspires our craft for this evening. So our idea is a message in the bottle, right? And so it's a craft all on its own. Could be nice and decorative, especially if you go for like a beach theme. But what we really want to do is tie in like an actual message that we can come back to. This could be something we're making for ourselves or something we're making for somebody else, maybe as a nice gift or, a welcome to campus kind of a thing. So I want you to kind of keep that in mind. The idea of positive self-talk is that we are actively responding to the negative stuff that might be stuck in our heads sometimes, right? And by being intentional and responding actively in that way, we can actually change that inner dialogue. There's lots of great resources out there. I mean, certainly you can check out what CAPS, our Counseling and Psychological Services, has to offer. You could do a Google search for things like positive self-talk. A resource that I really love is Happify. They've got lots of great videos. And they actually have one on kind of responding to or defeating negative thoughts. And part of, again, the idea there is recognizing that you're having those negative thoughts and then actively responding in a couple of different ways. One way for, us to cope with the kinds of thoughts that might get in there and spin around and it's hard to get them out, especially the self-defeating ones, the ones that aren't so nice to ourselves, could be to do something to distract ourselves. And that's part of the benefit of an activity like this, right? The activity in and of itself is a coping skill. Again, that's core to the idea of healing arts, that we're really developing a skill set in terms of our awareness, recognizing the kinds of things that could affect us and how they affect us, as well as the things we can do to respond. And so, the idea of using creative, artistic expression to engage our minds in different ways and maybe even, again, create a little distraction, there's some real benefit there. And then what we're going to create, we'll be able to come back to later, at another time. Say we need a little inspiration. We'll know that message that we sent to ourselves is there. So if you picked up one of the self-care kits on campus, what you got was a little bottle with a stopper like this, a little bag of sand of some sort, a couple of shells of some sort, and some nice raffia twine and a little note card. So we're going to use all these things. If you did not pick up a self-care kit, obviously you can see from these ingredients, right? This is pretty simple. You can use a recycled bottle. I actually have something here to illustrate. So this is just a juice bottle that I've recycled. I didn't bring in any sand, but I have, some rocks and shells from previous trips to the beach. So this is an easy one to recreate on your own, even if you don't have, the same materials that we're talking about here. And if you're doing, your own bottle, you could use different kinds of paper, different shapes. You could, instead of tying the message around the outside as we're going to do with our Stony Brook supplies, you could put it right inside. So I've got I'm going to make both versions and we'll kind of go along together. Kristen, I'm glad to have you here with me this evening. If you are, making the materials along with us, I want to hear about your experience. So again, this is not a heavy duty brain buster on this one. It's really about just taking some time to put things together the way you would. So lots of people got different colors of sands. Oh, hello there, Emily. And that's what I was just going to ask. I got pink sand and I wasn't sure if everybody got pink sand. Emily, it looks like you've got pink sands. How about, oh, excellent. Kristen, what color sand did you get? Did you also get pink? what I'm doing, and we could obviously go about this a couple ways. I'm not worried about getting sand on my table. It's a little space I've cleared up for work, so I'm just going to pour it in. If you wanted to be maybe a little more careful, you could snip off the end and make it a little funnel. But either way, oh, so you got a dark purple, Kristen. That is my favorite color, so I'm a little jealous, but I'm still happy with this bright pink. It's a very happy color. So all I did is lay in almost all of my pink sand into the bottom there. Now this is a pretty wide mouth bottle, so I'm gonna see if I can use any of my own pretty little rock supplies. So I have a habit every time I go to the beach, I pick up a rock. They lose their individual significance in terms of I can't remember where this particular rock came from, but I know that it came from a happy day at the beach. And so it matters less what specific happy day than collectively, I got a whole bunch of happy memories that I can tap anytime I want in the form of all these beach rocks. So that's one I'm going to throw in there. Got a chunk of beach glass that's way too big. I got this smaller little quartz way too big. So I think I'm going to stick with just a little rock that I put in there, as well as these cute, cute, cute little spiral shells that came with our supplies. I don't know, holding this at an awkward angle. Yeah, so there you go. You can see. So I'm going to throw them in there, but I'm going to save one or two for my other bottle since I wanted to see if I could duplicate one. And that's it. As far as the main part of the craft, that's as simple as it gets. You could make it more complicated, again, if you had more stuff to add to it. If you're somebody like me who collects, random bits and baubles from the beach, you might have lots of little things that you could add to this. You could also make a precious stone version of this. If you're somebody who likes to work with different kinds of gemstones, there's lots of gorgeous little rough stones. Some folks are really into sort of the elemental powers that go along with different stones like rose quartz or moonstone or what have you. And they can make a lovely little message in a bottle. Again, especially, if you want to give yourself a gift or give somebody else a gift to add some of those semi-precious stones, which if you go to, one of the stores in Port Jeff or probably wherever you live, you know of some kind of store like that has tarots and crystals and things like that. But it can make it really pretty and extra special. But either way, I think this is pretty cute. And we've got the pink sand. We've got some of those nice stones. Kristen is saying she's also got a shelf in her room where she's collected tons of fun memories in the form of, pretty beach stuff, rocks and stuff that she's collected. So I knew I wasn't the only one out there. Now, I have my little slip, and I'm going to leave a little message to myself. And I've been thinking all day about what I wanted to leave for myself as a message. There are some themes in our lives that, may just keep coming back around and around and around. And that kind of guides the kind of thing that we might want to leave ourselves as a message. And sometimes we're just thinking about one specific kind of situation, and we want to remind ourselves in that kind of situation, hey, don't forget this. Hey, don't forget that. Honestly, I come down on, this might sound a little bit like a rough around the edges, but what I really want to remind myself is that I can really kick butt when I need to. I've been going through, like a lot of folks, some bumpy patches with all the COVID stuff and other things going on in my life. And at times it's been hard to remember that, I've got what it takes to persevere. So there's lots of ways I could express that, right? Like persevere could be a good way to do that, or hang on, or you are strong. But really what I kept coming back to every time I kind of needed to give myself a little boost was sort of a combination of that little rough tone that I mentioned is my typical, combined with the gentler kind of self-compassion that I've been trying to cultivate. So instead of kind of coming at myself like a drill sergeant, like, hey, get off your butt, do something, make this happen, stop complaining, whatever it might have been the old self-talk, I found myself kind of more like a kinder, gentler drill sergeant, like you're an ass kicker. You got this. You can do it. And that's what I want to tap into. That's what I want to remind myself. So when I see this looking up on my shelf, whether in the office or at home, I'll remember, right? When the going gets tough, I know how to kick butt. So that's all that I'm writing. I have a special silver Sharpie that I save for special occasions like birthday cards and things like that. And I'm going to use that one for myself. You kick butt. And I'm simply going to thread my raffia through here. While I'm doing that, I'm going to check in with our friends. So Emily or Kristen, if you're comfortable, I'd love to know what kind of messages you're thinking about sending yourselves. Or for that matter, I'm also making a major assumption. I'm assuming you're going to keep your message in the bottle for yourselves, because you might also be looking to give it to somebody else you know who might need a little boost now and again. I'm just going to tie this up and I'll show everybody how it looks. Here we go. All right, all right. There we go. Here we are. So that message, you can see it's not a big thing. It's just going to be up there for me anytime I need to look at it, up on my shelf. Now, I mentioned I have a bigger bottle that I had saved from something else. I don't have much sand left, but I do have a tiny bit I'm going to drop in there. And it barely covered the bottom, but it made a nice little sparkle. And I do think this mouth could hold some of the bigger shells and stuff that I saved. And I've got a little message from Kristen here. Okay. There's a John Mayer song I listen to when I'm anxious with the main motif of "It's Just a Wave." And so that's what Kristen is going to put on her doodle, on her message to herself. It's just a wave. And I love that. I love that so much. I mean, that's so evocative in and of itself, but also the idea that the troubles we encounter, they're temporary. Even when they're, you know, maybe a longer duration than we would really like, they're still just one wave on the overall sea of our lives, right? And we can ride that wave for a while. We can ride it until things settle down and we're in a calmer place. The world is perhaps in a calmer place. But I really love that. That's a beautiful, thought to kind of come back to there. And again, what I'm doing here is I'm just adding some of my own shells here. I have this pretty piece of beach glass. Beach glass is something you don't find as often, but it's always a thrill when I find it. Throwing that in there. This one's a little bit more quartzy. And there you go. So again, another message could go in there. You could have a whole collection of these to represent different times in your life. I made this one years and years ago with my niece and nephew. I can't even get it open at this point. It's been closed for so long, but if you can look in there, it's got some real beach sand. It's got some beach glass. There's a little tiny scroll of a message in there. I don't even remember what that particular message is, but I do have the memory of making it with the kids, and it's really special to me. So it gives me a boost just knowing it still exists, just seeing it up on my mantle. And this is, again, the value of these things. You're being intentional. You're acknowledging that as a human, sometimes you have rough patches and sometimes you need a boost, and you're being intentional about creating a boost for yourself, creating a positive message that you can come back to. You know, doing this sort of activity is part of sort of planning for self-care, planning to do something for in the moment. As we said, like, this is an activity. This was nice for us just to connect together for a little while here and just do something a little bit crafty. I know you can see my husband going in and out there as a special guest star. And at the same time, we're not just doing something now, we're also planning for the future. A little bit later this evening, our friend Carrie Mahoney is going to be doing vision boards. Same idea. You're engaging in activity that by itself is a part of good coping. Planning is a coping skill, right? But at the same time, you're focusing on goals and identifying specific, steps or benchmarks that you can use to help you get a little bit closer to those goals. So whether we're talking about an academic goal, whether we're talking about maybe a social goal, maybe one of your goals is to, make new friends, connect with new people. These are all things you can sort of map out and strategize a little bit to think about. Now, I hate to put you both on the spot, but I really appreciate that you're here with me to be put on the spot. Emily or Kristen, just curious. Academics aside, do you have any goals for this semester outside of the realm of academics, but part of your college experience? I'm always curious because students are always coming in with, kind of in addition to the academics, different parts of their life, maybe career related. Maybe it is, again, like I mentioned, the social, or maybe it's related to physical or emotional health. And so being able to kind of identify like an area of self-care or an area of wellness that you want to focus on, is the first step to then making some progress there. Making new friends. This is probably the number one thing. Thanks, Emily. It's probably the number one thing that we hear from students about making new friends. Kristen is mentioning that she'd also love to figure out how to meet new people and try new things. Like we're doing here tonight. Like, these are small little forays into new things and, maybe new concepts. But throughout the semester, both with CPO and with other areas on campus, you'll absolutely have opportunities to meet new people virtually, of course, but this won't last forever. Remember, it's just a wave, right? This too shall pass. And you might maybe even be able to jumpstart your friendship by kind of laying some foundation with folks virtually. And then when we are able to see each other, you already know each other from that first time you meet. And so maybe I'm thinking really enthusiastically and positively. And I want to be real. Maybe it is going to be a little bit challenging to meet new people and make new friends in the virtual way that we're operating, but it won't be impossible. And one strategy that, folks in my world have kind of talked about, in my world, meaning, that like counseling and the emotional and psychological wellness, is how important it is, even while physically distant, to remain socially connected. I think the phrasing of socially distance is very unfortunate, because we have to have physical distance in order to stay physically healthy. We still need the social connection. And so just thinking creatively about how you can reach out to one person every day, right? Not necessarily the same person and not necessarily for the same reasons. Maybe one day it's a social call on somebody. Maybe another day it's reaching out about, some kind of academic or career-related question. But the idea is just to be intentional about reaching out, going outside of the comfort zone, because we've all spent so much time behind the computer. That's, whether we like it or not, probably pretty comfortable for most of us. And it's going to be a little bit hard to kind of go beyond the green button of the screen and the camera to kind of make that connection with people. And so being bold, right? And taking chances. And that's where kind of we come full circle with some of our discussion points for tonight, again, around the positive self-talk and being kind to yourself, because it could feel maybe a little intimidating trying to reach out maybe to somebody from class or to a new club you're thinking about joining. Because you don't know them and you haven't had a chance to meet them. But you can remind yourself that, with those positive messages, it's like, hey, good things can come out of this. This is an exciting opportunity. You might be able to make a new friend, or at least make a connection that could lead to other opportunities for new friends. I can tell you that while things are different in the virtual world than while we were operating with the regular whole full in-person experience, our clubs are still operating. There's still opportunities to kind of connect. I can tell you, as you can see with what we're doing, our different kinds of departments are offering lots of different activities. Student engagement, I know, is doing plenty of fun stuff. So don't lose heart and look for those opportunities. Be active in kind of scouring SB Engaged and seeing what's going on there, and reach out to departments like mine and student engagement with, ideas, if you have them, about things students might be able to kind of engage in, even under our current limitations. And so that's, I think, an important piece to all this. As I mentioned, there's lots of resources, on the web to learn more about things like positive self-talk. Positive self-talk is not just like, hey, you're awesome, you're great. Sometimes it's maybe kind of arguing back against the negative stuff. Maybe bringing in the kinds of evidence that you might want to challenge the negatives with. I don't know if other folks are familiar with this term. There's a kind of thinking about the way our minds and our bodies and, our emotions all work together. It's cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors are all connected. And so if we can be intentional about looking at those different pieces and addressing them, we can, kind of boost the whole cycle and have each of those pieces be working in a way that is satisfying and, hopefully happy for everybody. So kind of that's what I'm arguing for when I say, bring in the evidence. So if I'm finding myself like, oh, why should I even bother? It's not like anybody wants to talk to me anyway. Well, I might have some evidence here to counter that. So for example, I had 2 people who showed up, I think, for every single one of our healing arts events. So if I might in the future say like, oh, why should I even bother logging on? Nobody wants to hear these healing arts. The evidence supports that people do care about what we're doing and what I have to say and that kind of stuff. If I am maybe, being hard on myself and the evidence isn't readily available, then maybe I want to move on to something like a distraction, right? Getting out of my head. Maybe that involves reaching out to a friend. Maybe it means taking a walk, right? Safely physically distanced, but getting out of my space. Maybe getting out of the headspace by doing something else entirely, treating myself to some Netflix or something. This is wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, Kristen. This is great to hear that this is kind of these discussions and what we've been doing has been a highlight for you. I find these discussions and these activities to be really worthwhile too. And so I'm glad that you all are getting something out of it. I'm just curious, again, not to put you both on the spot, but when you need to get out of your head, Kristen or Emily, is there anything special that you find is really useful? Like I'm throwing out, like you can get out of your head by physically getting out of your space or just by kind of shifting your attention. What do you find is usually super helpful? If there is anything that you've currently found helpful, because if there's not, we can brainstorm. And by the way, I'm drinking one of my signature mocktails. This is cherry juice from one of the farm stands out east, combined with blood orange seltzer and a little shot of unsweetened cranberry juice, for health. And it's quite tasty and it's given me enough sugar to stay up with you all tonight. So thank you so much, Kristen. Kristen notes that she either tends to call her friends in a group call or to play music, right? And then Emily's saying she likes to play video games. Emily, do you tend to play with other people online? I know sometimes folks are meeting up with other friends or other people around, maybe even the world, to play video games. Do you play on your own or do you play with other folks? And as far as Kristen, your suggestion, I think those are excellent suggestions. And you kind of gave 2 really different but really valuable ways to kind of deal with getting out of your head. One is to connect with other people, right? To remind yourself you're not alone. People care about you. People want to see you happy, right? But sometimes it's like engaging those other senses. And that's what we've been doing with our events and activities over the last couple of nights, engaging different senses as part of our healthy coping. And so playing music is a really, really effective one. And that is, whether it's playing music like you play an instrument or playing music like you're filling your mind with music, that doesn't leave space, right, for those negative thoughts, especially the really self-defeating ones. And okay, so it looks like Emily typically likes to be by herself, but sometimes will connect with her friends. So again, sometimes having that solitude is just what we needed. That could be a meditative space, even if we're not doing like formal meditation practice. And that's really important. And this is great that we're kind of making connections here, because even though we all sometimes need a little time to ourselves, isolation is something we're also all struggling with. So I'm looking forward to being able to expand these types of events so that I can have more people on the screen with me. I'm still working on that. At the very least, I plan to utilize my big screen TV, either in the office at home, to have our student assistants visible while we're talking. So stay tuned for our events throughout the semester, because we're going to keep trying creative ways to get more students involved, to get more of your voices and your faces visible, so people can really, again, put those names to the faces and feel like they're making a meaningful connection. And I don't want people to feel isolated at Stony Brook. I've been part of the Stony Brook community for many years, and I can tell you that while it's a big place, it's like other big places. It's collections of smaller places that are all interconnected. And so if you are currently living on campus, you're not alone. There's a few thousand students living on campus. And even though we've got to keep our distance, there's still plenty of safe, healthy, fun ways that you'll be able to connect. And if you're not on campus, you've got your community at home, but you've also got the Stony Brook community. So I really hope that folks aren't feeling disconnected from Stony Brook. I hope it's like a bonus, right? You get to kind of stay with some of your familiar stuff and be part of this bigger, broader community that you're just getting introduced to. And so we're going through this together. This is the first opening weekend any of us have ever dealt with these circumstances. And so we're learning together. We're going to grow together. We're going to do interesting, exciting things together, but you won't be alone while we're doing it. Just kind of know that. If you do find yourself feeling isolated, join one of our activities, pop into, one of the many things that CPO has going on. You can learn more, engage that intellectual part of yourself as part of your coping, participate in, some of what student engagement or athletics or rec and wellness might have to offer. Again, ways to connect with yourself as well as with other people. And remember your positive self-talk, right? Even if you don't always remember to tap into it up here, remember where you leave your message and go to it when you need it. And nobody says you can't add more tags on here. You could have as many positive messages to yourself as you'd like. So friends, this has been a lovely evening, and this is my last Healing Arts event for this weekend. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll be reconnecting with our peer educators and our new interns, and we'll be making plans for events and activities going into the rest of the semester. So don't be shy. Reach out to us. You hopefully all will remember who I am. Christine Sarahs. I'm the only Christine in CPO, so you'll be able to find me there. Later on, you'll hear, as I mentioned, from Carrie Mahoney. Share your thoughts with her about things that you'd like to see more of. We hope we've given you a nice little taste of some of the kinds of activities we do, some of the themes that we address, but we're always expanding. We're always looking for creative suggestions. So don't be shy about reaching out at all. Kristen and Emily, any thoughts for you before we wrap up for tonight? I feel like you've been my unofficial co-host, and I so appreciate it. If you did not get a Healing Arts bag on campus, I mean, one of my fancy ones. Hold on, let me show everybody. Oops. This is what I mean by, I know some of the stuff was packaged in a fancy Healing Arts bag and some of it was in regular paper bags. But please, when we have an opportunity to see you on campus, I'd love for you to reach out and let me know that I promised you a Healing Arts tote bag, because it's been wonderful having you with me here this evening. Any thoughts for either of you before we wrap up? I really wish I had a way to make this like call in at this point. Other people could say like, yeah, this is what I want to say. Excellent. So Emily, good. I'm so glad you got one of the fancy ones. They're pretty strong. I love them. My next goal is to have an apron version made for the future, a couple of years down the road, maybe. But that also highlights another area that you'll probably see us doing some Healing Arts events, cooking, and like I mentioned before, mocktails, things like that. Excellent. So it looks like Emily definitely got one. Okay, great. Kristen, you got one too. Well, still, I owe you one for your unofficial co-hosting duties this evening. And I hope, whether you are watching us like in the YouTube after this has been recorded, or if you've been secretly lurking and we didn't know that you were here, either way, keep checking us out. Keep letting us know what you're interested in. Keep taking care of yourself. And I really hope you have a great first semester at Stony Brook. And yes, this is excellent. All right. So this is good to know. Kristen mentioned food allergies. So if we come up with some food-related activities, we will certainly be mindful of the allergy side of things. We'll get creative. We'll think about it. Keep those suggestions coming, folks. So thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. Again, remember CPO, educate, empower, connect. We want to hear from you. We are looking forward to having a great year. So you take care. All right, friends? Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Bye.